Hey, with your evening story channel, I post new interesting stories every day. Subscribe and click the bell to not miss it. Michael was angry and frustrated, so he silently and angrily went over his bread car before the morning departure, jingling his keys and talking to himself. Ethan, the warehouse manager, asked why Michael was so angry. Did you get up on the wrong side of the bed? Or did it happen that the guy wiped his hands with a rag and with annoyance said, "Yes, Adriana is my fiancée. All my nerves were frayed yesterday. I think it's over." Ethan was taken aback. "Oh, really? Why are you guys breaking up? We've been together a long time." Michael bloomed. She's even more tormented by her caprices and exorbitant demands. She wanted gold earrings I barely scraped together enough to buy silver ones, and gave them to her from the bottom of my heart. She turned her nose up at me and wrinkled it. She was so offended. Now you see she wants expensive tickets to a concert. She's threatening me, saying my mom has found me a rich fiancé. I'll live happily ever after with him. So let her go, I knew it. When I met her, she told me I wasn't an oil magnate. Ethan shook his head. You're right, Michael. You think when a girl is only looking for profit. There's no love there. My wife and I have been together for years. We've been through all sorts of things, and we've survived. So don't be sad. You'll meet another good bride. Michael spent the whole day driving over bumps, delivering bread to outlets, picking up leftovers, and wondering why everything happened like that. The kid grew up in an orphanage. The old nanny told me that he was dropped off at the gate like a puppy in an old wicker cradle. No note, no name, just an old tattered hair with a torn ear in his hands. So they gave him a name at the institution, Michael, probably because he was snub-nosed and red-haired like a sunshine. The boy grew up smart and clever, but he was fidgety. He often received punishments from his teachers. Michael dreamed of becoming a policeman. He drew epaulettes and patrol cars, wanted to protect people from harm and misfortune, but the kid never grew up. As they say, a man with a fingernail. In the army, he was immediately assigned to tank troops because of his small stature. He served faithfully. After the army, he started looking for a job, but without experience and connections, they wouldn't take him anywhere. But he was lucky. The orphanage staff took care of him. They wrote him a good character reference, so they hired him as a driver for an old bread truck. He lived in a room the state gave him. Michael's hands were golden. With any gear, he'd renovated the place and even put in some amenities. They met Adriana by chance. She was running to her girlfriend's room next door, and her lock was jammed. Here's our hero and recovered the beauty. The girl immediately fell into his soul, was spectacular and bright, defiantly dressed as from the picture. But Adriana, this unattractive Mr. Red-haired simpleton, did not like it at all. But she was a mercantile nature. She saw that the simpleton had fallen in love with her. Let him be. She decided. Michael had the money. Adriana is here like a curly-headed twirler, shooting her eyes, cooing. As soon as she gets her present and sees that he's broke, she made a scene. In the end, these swings so bored Michael that he could not stand it and told her everything, calling her a soulless bitch. The guy finally disbelieved in selfless and sincere love and decided to hang on to it for now. It was the end of November. The weather was abominable. It was snowing and raining, and the wind was blowing. The wipers of the truck did not have time to clean the windshield. Suddenly, near the curb, something flashed by the guy and did not immediately realize whether it was a man or an animal. So he slowed down to look at it out of curiosity. Near the sign, there was a girl barely standing, curled up from the cold, trying to brake cars. She looked, of course, that still all the makeup smeared on her face, whether from tears or from the rain. Her hair was wet and stuck icicles to the body. She was clearly dressed out of season. Light, silk, short pajamas, and barefoot slippers. Where did she come from? There's a forest all around, and a little farther away there are factories. There were no residential houses anywhere near here. Michael took pity on the poor guy and opened the cab. "Young lady, I'll give you a ride." Where are you going?" The girl jumped into the warm car. She was shaking, sniffling, and coughing. They drove to the city in silence. The guy didn't ask anything. He waited for his traveling companion to warm up and talk. Finally, at the next traffic light in the city, the young man couldn't stand it. "My shift is over. I'll drive the car away now and I can give you a ride home to the subway. Where can I drop you off?" Suddenly, the girl covered her face with her hands and sobbed. She whispered quietly, "I don't know where to go, but I understand. I'll go now," and huddled in the chair, trying to open the door and get out. Something inside the guy squeezed. She was pathetic, helpless, like a wet, sick puppy. Something he didn't expect of himself. And he said, "Okay, let's go to my place, get warm, get some rest, and then we'll see." She perked up. "Don't think I'm a whore, I'm just a woman." And she hesitated, as if afraid to continue. He laughed. "Don't worry, I won't hurt you. Look at me, do I look like a maniac?" And he winked at her traveling companion. At home, Michael gave the girl a bath towel and his clean clothes with the words, "Sorry, I live alone." There are no women's rags, and sent the poor girl to the shower. He went to the common kitchen to fry potatoes and onions. When he came back with a steaming pan, he found a hilarious picture. The stranger was sleeping soundly, curled up right on the chair. She was so funny in his shirt and tight, wide pants. He took a closer look. Without makeup, the girl was very pretty and young, almost a child. The guy carefully covered her with a warm blanket, did not wake her up, and sat down to dinner alone. Rummaged through the medicine cabinet, found some medicines, a thermometer, and left it on the nightstand. The next morning, Ethan, having learned about our hero's adventures, scolded him. "You're so stupid." "So? You left her alone like that and didn't even lock the door, without knowing her name or anything. What if she's a cloflin addict or something? That's how they get you to trust them. You come home at night and the place is empty. Try and find her later." Michael was really worried. He'd never had billions, of course, but he had a rainy day fund, of course, and the equipment too. The whole day he was not himself, but he had no right to leave the route. Everything was scheduled to the minute. In the evening, the guy flew home headlong. Still in the entryway from someone's apartment came the unrivaled smell of chicken and something similar. He gingerly opened the door and realized it was his room. There was a beautiful apple pie on the table. Michael felt ashamed that he had been thinking so badly about his mysterious stranger all day. Is that what it means to get yourself worked up? The girl, ruddy and satisfied, smiled. "Well, I've come to my senses. I feel better. We can get acquainted. My name is Betty. I've been doing a little housekeeping for you. Sit down, try it. Oh, and for the medicine." "Thank you. That's very nice of you, but I think I'm okay now. No fever, I'm just really cold." "Michael, that's nice. I haven't had a home-cooked meal in 100 years. And the guy was raving about the treat. The pie was delicious and melted in his mouth. So soon there was not a crumb left on the table. After dinner, the boy uncorked the bottle of wine he had saved for a special occasion and filled 2 glasses a little at a time. "Well, Betty, tell me what's the matter. Who dared to offend such a beautiful girl? Is there anything I can do to help? How did you end up almost naked in the woods?" The girl drank the glass in a gulp, and after a breath began to hear about such a businessman, Benjamin, who died recently, she asked. Our hero grinned. Who hasn't heard of him? A local business shark. The owner of factories, newspapers. Steamships tried to laugh, but the girl suddenly became serious and became sad-eyed. "Well, I'm his daughter. My father was killed, and they wanted to bury me in the woods. What do you think of the story?" The boy turned pale and changed his face. "It's more serious than you realized. It wasn't like having a fight with your boyfriend." Then he took a sip and continued. "My father raised me alone. My mom died during childbirth. He spoiled me. Never let me out of his arms. He called me doll bun. You know, when I was little, I was very jealous of other women. I guess that's why you never looked for a woman to live with. afraid I wouldn't accept him. And when I became an adult, I realized how bad and lonely he was alone, and even wanted him to meet a good and caring woman of his age. But when a year ago, my 60-year-old dad brought this topsy-turvy Kathy, who just on the forehead in large letters was written the word money, and his son William in addition. I was shocked. This lady was made of silicone. She was soaked in poison, and her son was afraid of her and indulged her. I tried to get through to the father to talk to him, but he was like a stunned man, saying Kathy loves me like a woodpecker, and William is like a son to me. You'll get used to it. It was like he was blind and deaf. I had a feeling Kathy would be trouble. She's such a nasty little woman. I'd see the pair of them rummaging through my father's study while he was away, looking for papers and taking pictures. They behaved impudently, benevolently, and swaggeringly. Our housekeeper was brought to tears by their assholes, and she was still nursing me. They didn't notice me at all, as if I was nobody, like I was nothing. But as soon as my father came home, they became silky smooth, fawning and fawning. I immediately became Betty and our daughter. Those words made me cringe. They were so untrue. A month ago, suddenly out of the blue, I was sent to a ski resort in the Carpathians in the middle of the session. And it was Kathy who insisted on the trip. The girl needs to take her mind off things. She's been so sad. She'll have a rest. She'll get some strength. The father was happy to go along, but nobody asked my opinion. A week later, I get the terrible news that my father died of a heart attack. I thought I was going to die the minute he did, and the girl sobbed loudly and continued, and he never even complained about his heart. He played sports, jogging in the morning. There's something fishy going on here. There's a reason they sent me away. How could you prove it? It was done clean. There's a morgue report. You can't do anything. I'm still reeling from my father's death. I cried my eyes out. I didn't want to live. I was all alone in the world. And that snake, what does it matter? Walks around the house, orders everything laughs and behaves like a mistress in the cemetery, and sobbed in front of the house, and did not shed a tear hypocrite. I felt so bad for my father and myself. If it hadn't been for her, we would have lived happily ever after. Then I couldn't stand my nerves. I gave in to a strong fight with them, and put the upstarts in their place. I told them that I was the only heiress and would decide how and what to dispose of, and who would live in the house. You should have seen the look on their faces. They almost clung to me, and things seemed to quiet down. Kathy was even wearing mourning and acting respectful, and William was trying to make friends. But I felt like it was the calm before the storm. 2 days ago, I was at home. Suddenly, the car alarm goes off. I hit the key fob, but the car wouldn't stop howling. So I jumped out in my pajamas and slippers to see what was wrong. I just sat down on the seat and I got hit in the back of the head from behind. I woke up. It was night. The car's coming and there's a conversation going on. Mom might just throw her out in the woods. And that's it. I can't do it. And the answer is, Kathy, are you crazy? It's a kilometer away. There's a clearing on the right where we need to go. You can dig a hole. The shovel's in the trunk. I'll do the rest. You're weak. Who's going to look for her? I realized I was dead, so I opened the back door and took a running jump. Lucky those bastards didn't lock the doors, and I didn't break anything on the fall. I ran like a hare from there. I was afraid to get on the highway. I thought they'd be waiting for me there, but then I couldn't take it anymore. I had no strength left and I was freezing. So I took a chance. I got on the road, that's all. What to do next? I don't know. And she put her hands on her head. Michael exclaimed, "What do I do? Go to the police." The girl smiled weakly. Who would believe me? They'll laugh and that's all. But the guy didn't agree. That's not true. Your photos with your father were published in many magazines, so they'll believe you, and I'll get Ethan on it. I think his son-in-law's an investigator. I bought you a tracksuit, so we'll go tomorrow morning. Investigator Lyam really doubted the truth of the story at first. It looked too much like fiction. But later he would check everything and changed his opinion. Liam turned to the girl. I've got it all figured out, Betty. Let's say you're not lying, but that doesn't give us anything. We can't nail this couple of facts. There is no proof. Only your words and nothing more. Michael decided to step in. I've got a plan. I wanted to consult, and he presented his idea, and Liam approved. On the appointed day, Michael was bugged under his jacket and sent to Betty's house. The guy was supposed to play a gangster, so he dressed in all black with a cap over his eyes and chewing gum. The bell rang. A young man appeared on the doorstep. Apparently William, and asked unhappily, "Who do you want to see? And who are you?" Our hero pushed away the stunned guy and businesslike said, "I'm Michael. Call your mother. There's business." William shouted, "Mom, someone is here to see you." An unpleasant person came out of the porch of the huge mansion. Kathy was in a housecoat with a towel on her head, and she threw it unfriendly. "Say what you wanted and get out." The guy clearly didn't expect such an outburst and frowned. "Easy on the turns, Mom. I picked up your stepdaughter on the highway the other day, and it turns out you wanted to kill her. Innocent child. But I'm not stupid. I'll tell you what's going on. I can bring her to you for a small fee, or I can take her to the police. It's up to you." And he spat his gum defiantly onto the pavement. Kathy wrinkled her nose. "How much do you want?" The guy smirked. "That's a different conversation. 3 million will do. I'm not greedy. It's not a lot of money for the luckless widow of a millionaire after all. Really?" And he winked at the woman. The woman angrily muttered that tomorrow you'll bring it to the 101st kilometer of the highway at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It's high time to finish this girl. What a tenacious viper. You got it. It's always nice to deal with serious people, the guy said, and walked out of the gate, rounding the corner. He exhaled and only then realized how scared he was. He hadn't failed. It seemed to believe him, the young man hoped. He couldn't stop trembling in his hands when he pressed the button of the dictaphone for a long time. The operation had gone smoothly. The greedy couple didn't suspect anything until the last moment. The police caught them during the exchange. You should have seen the look on their faces. Kathy was hissing like an angry snake. "You little viper. You survived and outsmarted me, pretending to be such a gray mouse." William was hysterical like a little kid, panicking and screaming it was Mommy. "I didn't want to go at all. Write that down. I'm willing to cooperate. She made me do it." He ratted his mom out. She got even more angry. "Shut your mouth, weakling. You'll only add time to your sentence." Betty hugged the guy in a fit of emotion. "Thank you, Michael. You saved me from certain death and from those nasty people. I am now eternally in your debt." The guy was embarrassed, although of course he was very pleased. The investigator also praised him well done. The boy was not afraid to spend such a scheme. The bandit perfectly pretended to be a bandit. "Even I wouldn't have figured it out, but you had to join our service." Michael hesitated. "No way who would hire me. I'm an orphan. I barely got a job as a bread driver. Where would I go?" But Liam went on, "And you start as a patrolman. You served in the army. You'll learn gradually. Anyway, if you think about it, I'll help you." And he shook the boy's hand. Betty and Michael became close friends, gradually becoming the closest people in the world. The girl, despite the huge inheritance, was very nice and simple. She entrusted all the affairs of her father, a reliable manager, and she herself was finishing her studies at the Faculty of Economics, to later work in his corporation. Betty persuaded the boy to give it a try, and he got into police school the first time and worked as a patrolman. His childhood dream came true. 5 years later, the couple had a lavish wedding. Betty was smart, so she did not boast of her status and money. She supported her husband in everything, and he, believing in himself, very quickly went up the career ladder. Everything went well with them, except for one thing. Betty could not get pregnant. She'd been to so many resorts and nothing. Michael saw her struggling with it. That's why he decided to do it. Betty, how would you feel about us adopting a baby from an orphanage? I mean, we'd be living a carefree life, raising him as our own. I grew up in an orphanage myself, and I know what it's like there. I mean, think about it. His wife throwing her arms around him. I've been wanting to do that for a long time, but I've been afraid to say it. Are you the best? Although tomorrow. A month later, their family finally heard the sound of children's laughter.